Let's begin with a difficult truth, the kind most people feel but rarely articulate. You didn't fall for her because of who she is. You fell for her because of what she awakens in you. That sudden pull, that magnetic force, that undeniable chemistry. It's not about her smile, or her voice, or even her body. It's deeper, much deeper. It's about what she mirrors inside your psyche. Carl Jung called it the anima, the inner woman every man carries within his unconscious, the blueprint of your desire. The reason why, out of 1,000 faces, hers hits differently. But before you think this is just about love or lust, listen closely. This is about identity, about the hidden architecture of your soul. You don't just fall in love with someone, you project. And what you project is the most powerful illusion you will ever face. She becomes the screen onto which your inner world is cast. And that's the most dangerous part, because what you're attracted to isn't real. According to Jung, the anima is not a person. She's a psychic force, an archetype. She's been inside you since birth, shaped by the feminine energy of your mother, molded by the women you admired, and fed by the culture that defined beauty, mystery, and affection. She is chaos and comfort, desire and fear. And when a woman enters your life who carries a resemblance, not physical, but energetic, to this inner anima, you fall. You don't fall in love. You fall into a projection. Now here's where it gets darker. Because Jung didn't stop at romance. He believed that your anima, if unintegrated, can ruin you. She can make you chase illusions. She can make you weak. She can dominate your will. She doesn't care if the woman in front of you is good for you, only that she feels familiar, that she matches the ideal your unconscious craves. So what happens? You meet someone. You get that click, that spark, that sensation you can't explain. But it's not about compatibility. It's about chemistry. And chemistry is not truth. It's memory. It's projection. It's the unconscious saying, she feels like the version of love I've always imagined. And you lose control. You pedestal her. You obsess. You overgive. You betray yourself. And you suffer. Because the woman you think you love is only partly real. The rest of her is made of your unresolved past. Jung didn't say she was evil. He said she was powerful, and if you don't face her, she'll govern you. Quietly, from within. She'll make you fall in love with ghosts. She'll confuse your hunger for validation with passion. She'll make you ignore red flags because the fantasy feels too good to let go. You won't see women for who they are. You'll worship who they represent. Not a lover, a savior, a mother you never healed from, a mirror reflecting the parts of you still waiting for approval. And that's not love. That's spiritual possession. Now breathe. Maybe this already sounds too familiar. Maybe there's someone you haven't been able to forget. The girl who wrecked you. The one who felt like home even while she tore you apart. Be honest. Did you love her? Or did she match the shape of your wound? The anima doesn't come to destroy you. She comes to wake you up. But if you don't recognize her, you'll mistake her for destiny. You'll chase women not for who they are, but for what they stir in you. For the ache, the high, the haunting comfort of chaos you've never questioned. This is where everything begins to change. Because once you become aware of her, the projection starts to unravel. You see the pattern, the repetition. You weren't choosing love. You were choosing the story. And every woman you called the one was just another chapter in your attempt to feel whole. Jung said a man must descend, not into darkness, but into himself, into the shadow, into the anima, not to reject her, but to reclaim her, because she holds your softness, your intuition, your capacity to feel without collapsing. And when you integrate her, when you stop projecting her onto others, you stop being ruled by your hunger. You stop mistaking obsession for connection. You stop chasing highs and start honoring your peace. That man, he's rare. He doesn't beg for attention. He doesn't fear rejection. He loves, fully, but never at the cost of himself. Because he knows what he's feeling. And finally, he knows who he is. So let me ask you something that may sting. Was it truly love? Or was it the echo of your own hunger wearing her face? When you think about her, the one who still lingers in your chest, are you remembering her or the feeling she unlocked in you? Because here's the truth. We don't fall for people. We fall for what they awaken. And until you confront that, you'll repeat the same spiral over and over, calling it fate, calling it divine timing. But it's not destiny. It's programming. The unconscious running the show while you mistake the script for reality. Jung didn't tell us to fight our desire. He told us to dissect it, to pull it apart, to ask, is this love or is this projection? Because the most dangerous thing in a man's life is not a woman. It's the image he's addicted to. And that image, if left unchecked, keeps him small, reactive, blind. But you're not that man anymore. Something in you has shifted. You're starting to see. And once you see, there's no going back. You stop chasing fireworks. You stop chasing chaos that feels like passion. You start asking different questions. What part of me did she reflect? What did I believe she completed? And that's when it all changes. Because now, you don't just feel, you notice. Desire doesn't dominate you. It informs you. The pull is still there, but now you observe it. You pause. You breathe. You track the pattern instead of falling into it. That moment of pause, that's where your power lives. Jung knew the man who can hold his desire without being consumed by it is untouchable. He doesn't run from beauty. He just refuses to kneel to it. You don't stop feeling. You feel more, but from the inside out. You're no longer seduced by your fantasies. You're seduced by truth. And that is where freedom begins. You weren't chasing her. You were chasing a part of you that had been asleep for years. And the way she looked at you, the way she moved, the way her presence cracked something open. None of that was random. She didn't give you a new feeling. She reactivated an ancient one. A memory your soul had buried. A version of you that was silenced long ago. That's why you couldn't stop thinking about her. She didn't bring wholeness. She reflected the parts of you you've been avoiding. The soft ones. The broken ones. The creative, innocent, tender ones. The need to be understood without performance. The hunger to be loved without proving anything. The ache to be safe enough to fall apart. But here's the trap. When you don't realize those parts are yours, you believe they belong to her. You think she carries your peace, your fire, your meaning. You turn her into a goddess. You beg her to stay, thinking she's the source of something sacred, when in truth, she just awakened what was buried inside you all along. And this is where most men lose themselves, worshiping a woman who merely held up a mirror. Not because she was divine, but because she resembled the divinity you forgot existed within. That's the illusion Jung wanted to break. That's the shadow most refuse to face. Because facing it means asking painful questions. What was I actually seeking in her? What feeling did I believe only she could unlock? What part of me have I refused to claim on my own? And once you start answering that, the illusion begins to die. You realize you were never in love with her. You were in love with the man you became in her presence. And that man is real. That man is you. But to become him fully, you must stop projecting. You must stop giving your soul away in exchange for glimpses of it. She was the invitation. You are the transformation. And yes, letting go of the illusion hurts. But it's not the end. It's the beginning. A death, yes, but of the mask, not the man. You're not mourning her. You're mourning the part of yourself you abandoned. And now, you've come back. Something changes when you stop seeing women as salvation and start seeing yourself clearly. You don't chase anymore. You observe. You don't fall into fantasy. You stand in truth. You don't hand over your power in exchange for a flicker of affection. You bring your full presence and let reality decide what stays. And yes, they feel it. They feel that you are not moved by desperation, that you're not waiting to be chosen, that you no longer need them to fill some invisible gap you haven't dared to touch. And that is what creates respect. Not charm, not effort, not performance, but stillness. Stillness unnerves people. It makes them confront themselves. Because when you meet someone who doesn't want anything from you, someone who is whole, the games stop working. The masks start to slip. And the truth shows up. Not all women are ready for that. But the ones who are will recognize it instantly. You stop dating for distraction. You stop performing for connection. You start discerning. And that changes everything. You're not looking for someone to complete a fantasy. You're holding space to see who can meet you in reality. That's the shift. That's what Jung meant by integration. You've faced your anima. You've claimed the traits you once projected. And now, you don't need her to bring them to life. You bring them. You embody them. That softness, it's yours. That depth, yours too. That emotional intelligence, that creative chaos, that soulful presence, all of it was you from the beginning. And now, it's yours to wield. The world doesn't teach men how to live from this place. It teaches them how to perform, how to hunt, how to impress. But no one tells them that the most powerful thing a man can do is become self-contained, untouchable not because he is closed, but because he is whole. So here's the question. Why keep waiting for someone to unlock what's already inside you? Why keep handing your mirror to someone else? Why not become the man you keep hoping she'll recognize? Because when you do, something radical happens. You stop attracting chaos. You stop collapsing under beauty. You stop losing yourself in stories. And finally, you love without leaking. You choose without clinging. You stay without shrinking. That's not just transformation. That's liberation. You've seen behind the illusion. You've felt the grip of projection loosen. But insight is not the end of the work. It's the invitation. Awareness without embodiment is a ghost. And now, it's time to give that ghost a body. To live differently. To relate differently. To love differently. Because if you don't, the old patterns return dressed in new faces. That's the curse of what Carl Jung called unconscious repetition. What you refuse to integrate, life will force you to repeat. Not because it hates you, but because it's trying to wake you up. That's why the same pain shows up in different clothes. That's why the names change. But the wound stays the same. You'll think it's fate. You'll call it bad luck. But it's not. It's your shadow, begging to be seen. And if you ignore it, you'll keep mistaking projection for passion. You'll keep falling into illusions, thinking you've found her when all you've found is another mirror. And here's the brutal truth. You are not falling in love with her. You are falling into your own forgotten self. Again and again. Until you stop outsourcing the feminine. Until you stop demanding that someone else hold what you've abandoned. So how do you break the cycle? Not by swearing off love. Not by numbing your desire. But by becoming the container that can hold both your fire and your softness. By letting your sensitivity speak without shame. By letting your chaos breathe without judgment. By giving space to the parts of you that don't fit the masculine script. And making them sacred again. That's not weakness. That's integration. That's strength most men never reach. Because most men never question why they need her so badly. But you are no longer most men. Now, you don't seek wholeness in her eyes. You bring it with you. Now, you don't fall for women who reflect your wound. You walk beside women who recognize your healing. Now, you don't collapse into infatuation. You choose connection with clarity. And that, right there, is the beginning of real freedom. Not from her, from yourself. You're no longer drowning in the hunger to be chosen. The silence no longer feels like a punishment. Her absence no longer dictates your worth. Because something shifted. You're no longer chasing, you're choosing. And that alone changes everything. What once felt like a loss now feels like liberation. You're not asking, why didn't she want me? You're asking, did I ever really want her? Or was I just addicted to the way she made me forget my own emptiness? That question cuts deep, but it also sets you free. And with that freedom comes a wave you didn't expect. Grief. Not the grief of heartbreak, the grief of waking up. The grief of realizing how many years you performed, adjusted, contorted yourself into something digestible, hoping to earn affection that was never love, just projection. This grief is not weakness. It's the burial of a false identity. The one that begged for approval. The one that saw attention as oxygen. The one that mistook longing for depth. Let it burn. Let it ache. Because on the other side of that pain is the quiet dignity of someone who no longer needs to be seen to feel seen. You start to relate differently. You no longer look for the one. You look for truth. You don't ask, does she want me? You ask, does she align with who I've become? And most won't. And that's okay, because your love has become sacred. You don't hand it out like candy hoping to be enough. You carry it like fire, knowing it can warm or burn. And not everyone is meant to hold it. That's what scares people. A man who no longer fears rejection is not reckless. He is rooted. He is precise. He loves by choice, not compulsion. And when he walks away, it's not out of bitterness. It's out of clarity. That is power. Not because he's above desire, but because he finally understands its depth. And Jung would say, now, you're no longer a slave to the anima. You are in dialogue with her. And that dialogue, not the fantasy, is what makes you whole. When you finally name what's been pulling you all along, it loses its power. Not because the feeling disappears, but because now you see it. You're not a man possessed by longing. You're a man who understands its root. And that makes you unshakable. You don't collapse when someone leaves. You don't spiral when the message goes unanswered. You don't define your worth by who stays or who walks away. Because your center is no longer out there. It's in you. That's the quiet power no one taught you. The kind that doesn't need validation to exist. The kind that doesn't need noise to feel real. The kind of power that walks alone and feels whole. This is the shift. You stop chasing women to feel alive. You stop needing their gaze to feel seen. You stop offering yourself in pieces just to be tolerated. And you start choosing, with clarity, with precision, with sovereignty. You understand that not every spark deserves a fire. Not every connection requires devotion. Not every maybe deserves your presence. You stop calling chemistry destiny. You stop mistaking obsession for purpose. You start asking the real questions. Does this connection reflect who I've become? Does it honor my peace? Or does it resurrect my past? And this is where most men turn back. They feel the discomfort of awareness and retreat into fantasy. But not you. Because you've come too far. You've stared at your shadow and didn't look away. You've seen what projection costs. And now, you're ready to lead your life with both hands on the wheel. So if this hit something in you, not just a thought, but a fracture, write this in the comments. I walk beside my shadow now. Let the world know you've stopped running. Like the video. Share it with someone still asleep inside their illusion. And subscribe, because the next video won't be easier. It'll be more real. And that's the point. Truth over fantasy. Wholeness over chaos. Awareness over obsession. This is the threshold. You either step into your power or go back to sleep. But if you've come this far, you already know. There's no going back.